Hello everybody, day 38 of shelter, and it's a beautiful peaceful Sunday here, and today I thought to dive into a subject that very few of us like to actually discuss, and its name is shame. And shame is known as the master emotion of the not good enough emotion. And it really lies at the core of unworthiness, the unworthiness that we are not worthy of connection, love, and belonging. And it's an emotion that plays incredible havoc in our lives if we don't know what that looks and feels like and where it takes us. And I really believe that it's time for us to start talking about shame so that we can actually work with it and become shame resilient. And build up a skill set that allows us to really stay authentic with ourselves. So a couple of things that we're going to look at today. So there's shame 1, 2, 3s. And the first one is that we all have it. We're all afraid to talk about shame. And the less we talk about shame, the more control it has over our lives. So herein, it's universal to us, and certainly we need to start talking about it. So there's 4 conscious, self-conscious effects of it. Shame is difficult to talk about, and the reason it's difficult to talk about is because of the vocabulary that we use. So very often we get mixed up with shame, guilt, humiliation, or embarrassment. And very briefly, they're not interchangeable words that we should be using, because they actually show up very differently for us in terms of behavior, biology, and they have very, very different outcomes for us. So it's really important that we get to grips with what is it when we're talking about something that we're feeling uncomfortable or insecure about. Is it shame? And shame is I am bad. Guilt is I did something bad. Humiliation is very much determined by whether you deserved something or not. Whether your actions were deserving of whatever or however it was treated. And then embarrassment is really sort of fleeting. It's often funny, and you know that you're not alone in it. And it's the one that is the sort of least socially detrimental to us. The other 3 are ones that we definitely want to be focusing on. So if we look at guilt is actually a very healthy emotion, not when it's pulling us into drama triangles, although it's very healthy to know where guilt is taking you. Obviously, if you're not comfortable feeling the guilt, you're going to stay stuck in your neediness and codependent patterns and what have you. However, empathy and value lie in the contours of guilt. So it's actually a very socially adaptive emotion. Why? Because when you feel like you've done something wrong, you can actually go in and apologize. Whereas where shame exists, you're not necessarily going to do that. You're going to want to hide. You're going to want to absolutely run and keep it in the dark for as much or as long as you can. And of course, that's where the antidote of empathy comes in with shame, because the only thing that actually allows us to overcome shame is in fact empathy for self and empathy for others. So we're not going to be able to talk about empathy today because there's just too much to cover. And I really just wanted to get your heads around what shame is and where it takes us, and often the places that it plays havoc for us. So the reason why shame is something really important for us to know is because it erodes the part of us that believes that we can change. And that's quite a serious situation, because if shame is holding back all forms of transformation, there's very little chance of you being able to shift whatever situation you're looking to change. So when we talk about shame, we want to try and understand the physiology of it. Like, how's it showing up in your body? Where does it show up? And a couple of questions that might help you work through that are, where do you feel it in your body? So some people feel it in their chest. For many, they don't feel it anywhere specifically, but they actually experience it in their thoughts around themselves. Where might your shame symptoms, or what might your shame symptoms include? It could be the actual physiological happening of that, where there's sweaty, shivery, anxious. And for many, once again, those that are happening in our headspace, it goes into self-doubt and then into typical places of withdrawal. Now, obviously, this is different for everybody. I'm just throwing out some ideas for you to get some sort of thinking going around physiologically where this might be happening for you. How would you know that you're in shame? Sometimes it's a feeling of nervousness, feeling hot or flushed. And how would you know that you're in shame? For many, it's that feeling of less than. It's going into comparison, wanting to run and hide. And when you talk about shame, how would you feel? Most of the time for me, if I'm in shame, it makes me feel very small, very less than. So you want to try and understand where that might be showing up for you. And then, of course, when we go into shame, we generally try and put up what we call shame shields. And remember, this is happening in your brain. Your brain is there to protect you. It's wanting you to dive into a place that is going to protect you in some way. And generally, you're moving away from something, or you're moving towards it, or you're moving against it. So, where is your go-to in terms of a shame shield? And two questions, who are you most likely to move or to use one of these shields with? And who would you move away from, who would you move toward, and who would you move against? And then, of course, which is the shame shield that you use most of the time? Where's your go-to shame shield? And then the last area is, how does shame actually show up for you? What are your behaviors? Where do you go? And some of the aspects might be bullying, gossiping, blaming and pointing fingers at people, comparison, cover-ups, perfectionism, having power over people, teasing, going down that whole route of nostalgia, or having an invisible army behind you, favoritism, harassment. What is it for you? You want to know these aspects of shame and to start to shed some light on it for yourself so that it can stop actually growing. Because anything that's kept in the dark is going to become bigger and grow. So, I don't know if that was helpful. I've just thrown out a whole bunch of thinking around shame, and I hope that it takes you to places, that it makes you think about where it shows up. And remember, don't be the one that stands up and says, I don't have shame. We've already said that there are shame 1, 2, 3s. We all have it. It's universal. It shows up in places for us. And it's to become comfortable enough to say, oh my gosh, when this happens, I feel this way, to know what it feels like, and to be able to then step back from the shields that keep you from being authentic and showing up in this world the way that you would like to. Happy Sunday, and I'll see you for our check-in tomorrow.